2020 County Commissioners meeting. Do I have a motion on the Clerk General?
So moved, and yes.
Yes, and on the requisitions?
So moved.
Second. Yes.
And yes. And I know we have something to add on.
I do. I have the, first I have is items for consideration not on the consent agenda. I have a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of amendment number 2 to the CFPN Ohio LLC Community Reinvestment Area Agreement.
What is this?
It's actually just a language cleanup for the CRA that was done for Core 5. They made an adjustment a year or so ago to extend the time, and what they failed to do it on a second piece of the actual, to carry it over to another piece of part of the legislation. So it's just a cleanup. So they just wanted to make sure it was recommended.
This is the issue that Matt emailed about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a cleanup contract issue.
Correct.
Extension of time, they didn't do it on the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we already agreed to the extension. It's just an amendment to the contract to reflect what was we already agreed to.
So moved.
Second.
And yes?
And the last thing I have is an add-on, a resolution to hire Kaden Westendorf as administrative clerk within Children's Services Division.
Is there a motion?
Yep. So moved.
And yes.
Yes?
That's all that I have.
Okay. So the first item of business is Matt Bruns, the Chief Development Officer with Countryside YMCA, to present information on the 4th grade Begin to Swim program. Good morning.
Morning. I'll start, appreciate the opportunity first off, so thank you for allowing me to be here in the office. I'm gonna play a 2-minute video, and then I'll just be around for any questions. I just want to bring awareness to a program that the Countryside is offering.
It was a great chance to give our students some exercise, give them something fun to look forward to in 4th grade, and just to have a program that was unique, that we don't have anything like that in our curriculum for PE.
My name is Matt Bruns. I'm the Chief Development Officer at Countryside YMCA. Countryside Y is the largest nonprofit in Warren County. One of the programs we offer is a 4th grade Begin to Swim program. The program is for 4th graders in Warren County. It started in Lebanon, and we have branched out to Little Miami and Waynesville. One of the neatest things about this program is when they get off the bus out front, you don't know who can afford a swim lesson, who can't afford a swim lesson. They all come as one. They get off the bus, go in the locker room, get changed, and they head right into our instructional pool. And there's different levels of kids as far as swim skills are concerned. Some are just learning, like have never put their face in water before, and they're blowing bubbles. And then you've got other kids that are on their swim team here, and they're out over in the other lanes doing laps and practicing different strokes and things. So there's different skill levels in there, but the kids all are one in there, and that's kind of the neat thing. So the program is made possible because we go out in the community and we fundraise for this as one of our 7 outreach programs. One sponsor we have right now that is fantastic for us is Girdwood Orthodontics. Dr. Bart knows the importance of not being able to swim as a child, learning to swim, and now he excels and does triathletes and stuff, so he gets behind this 100%. They're fantastic partners for this program.
It's been overwhelmingly positive, and parents already asking, are we doing this again next year? And it's so nice to be able to say, yes, we are. This is something we're going to continue.
So that's the video that our marketing team put together. We are sharing that with the community. Just wanted to share it with this office today. Ask if there's any questions about the program. Just to give you a quick little history, we've been doing it for about over 10 years. We've started in Lebanon, we've added Little Miami, we've added Waynesville. So we have 3 schools that go out there each quarter of the school year currently. So there are resources involved, which is why we fundraise. My job is to fundraise and make sure we have the opportunities to do the outreach programs that we do. So I would ask this office, just as you know about the program, if you were in my shoes, how can we make sure we keep the program going with funding, and how can we grow it where it is needed? If you think of any opportunities, please share those with me. That would be my only ask. But other than that, I just wanted to share it, bring awareness to it, and see if you had any questions about it.
What is your budget?
Roughly with the 3 schools, we're about $25,000 for that program. Total for the year, we are about $375,000 for giving resources like this out into the community. This is one of 7 outreach programs. Do one for veterans, one for cancer survivors. The largest one is financial assistance. We make sure the opportunities at the Y are open for everybody, regardless of their financial status.
Well, we appreciate the work that the Y does in the community, and I always see your leadership at, very involved in various, community meetings and so forth, so we know it's an important part of the community, so thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a public hearing scheduled at 9:15, but since we're not at 9:15 yet, I don't know if I need to wait to 9:15, and since I'm gonna be entertaining a motion to continue. Does Martin or Tiffany have something for the board?
Yeah, I just would like to follow up on that email that was shot yesterday relative to budget guidance for 2024. Just to kind of, I need to get those emails out to your departments and other elected officials this week, so just wanted to see where your thoughts were relative to guidance on the 2024 budget. I think I can go more in detail relative to that. Is if you remember, the tax budget was about 13.5% high, and obviously we had discussions as that is not where it needed to land. We've done some preliminary work thus far and have gotten it probably down to about 6.8%, with just some items that we just knew on the top. We haven't really dove deep too terribly far with departments and other electeds at this stage of the game. So we were kind of thinking that a good target might be around that 4%, knowing that there would be items that, like always, that the commissioners would have to decide if they want to keep and add on and things, but we thought that might be a good target to shoot for 2024.
Yeah, obviously, I think we've tried to historically stay lower than a 4% increase, but dealing with the reality of the record high inflation for multiple decades that have been literally just dumped on us by the policies in Washington, that I think we all have to deal with this inflation. And so if we can keep that to around a 4% number, I think that seems somewhat reasonable, especially in the context that a lot of that is made up of increased wage pressure, which is the reality of the job market, with fewer people participating, because again, the government paid people not to work. A lot of those people have not come back into the workforce, and we're faced with the same constraints on the supply of labor, that if you back out the wage increases, I have a feeling our budget is much closer to norm, would be my guess.
Yeah, and there's some other things that go into that we'll have to consider. I mean, we did it last year and we'll have to do it this year as well, as with some of the higher interest rates. As an example, it's a one-off, but you know, we have larger investment income that's coming in, and we have to appropriate for some of those dollars to go out to like the water and sewer department. So there's some nuances there that we have benefited from with a higher, but it's, to your point, it's not taking off to the fact about wages. There's also some pent-up demand relative to vehicles and things that folks have not been able to get over the last couple of years that they'll want to sit there and put in. So there's a whole host of things that we would discuss. But like I said, I think we think we can get roughly down into that area. We'll have to wait and see, but I think that's a good target for us to shoot for.
I don't have any problem with that. That seems reasonable to me.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, well, those will go out here in the next couple of days, and it'll give them roughly a month to put those together, and then it seems like it's going really fast, but we'll be jumping into the budget cycle here pretty darn quickly.
I think that's how I've measured my career, by budget cycles. You know, once you do the tax budget, it seems like the annual budget comes very quickly.
Yes. So what is the anticipated time frame you think for having our first work session on that?
I'd have to, I mean, we usually give folks to the end of the month to have those in, and then I'll sit there and put it together. So I would say we'd probably try to get on the calendar as best we can towards the middle of October. We'll have to look at, obviously, everybody's schedule and try to get when everybody's here, but do our best to get that. Last year, I think we were ready to go, if I'm not mistaken, by kind of the first week or so in December, but we wanted all of you here in order to pass it, so we delayed it a little bit further into the year. So if we can, that's what we did, a little bit of the preliminary work. If we can get, lucky and come in and get close to that pretty fast, then hopefully it'll be fairly seamless.
Great. Anything else for the board that you wanna?
Do not believe so.
We try to get you to 15, but we at least get you 3 extra.
I know. Bruce, do you have anything for the board in the next 3 minutes prior to the opening the public hearing? Come on. You're usually not short of words, Bruce.
Well, I'm glad to be here today. I wasn't gonna be, but that hurricane made me come home early
Yeah.
from my vacation.
Well, we're glad to see you.
Yeah, well, I hope that everything turns out okay down there.
Yeah.
They've just come off of a bad year last year, obviously.
I think Tina had something that.
Oh.
I was just gonna say, be thinking of your Thursday evening meeting schedule, because we are going to have to make up one Thursday, because, we've got 2 people out of town on September 19th.
Can we just do September 14th? I think you have that on your calendars. Can we hold the Thursday on September 14th?
Mm-hmm. Good with that.
You're good with that? Dave?
Yes.
Okay, I'll get those resolutions in for on next Tuesday.
Okay. And then I think we should just hold, October the 12th and November the 9th and Thursdays. Would you check those 2 dates to see?
What date you're talking about?
Thursday the 12th of October and Thursday the 9th of November.
I don't think I'm gonna be available on the 12th myself.
Not on the 12th, okay. But you think the 9th you'll be okay,
Of November?
of November?
Yes.
Great, so let's put a hold on that, just in case we need it. There are other dates too, but.
Okay.
So if we meet on the 14th, we should satisfy the requirement. Okay, it's 9:15. It's time for our public hearing for a rezoning application of Redwood USA to rezone 63.812 acres from MXU-C with interstate highway overlay to MXU-C with PUD overlay. It has been noticed that we do not intend to take testimony today, but at the request of residents who couldn't be here in the morning, I would entertain a motion that this hearing be continued to September 28th, 2023 at 5 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Excellent. Next item on the agenda is also a public hearing, which is a continuation to consider text amendments to the requirement and standards for the design and construction of streets and roadway facilities in Warren County. But that's not scheduled to begin until 9:20, so we'll just stand at ease for the next 4 minutes, and at 9:20, we will open that public hearing.
Tina, when do we continue continue Shaker Woods 2.
It's the one for today.
Is it September 5th?
I think so. That's too small.
It's so quiet.
No, it's not the 5th.
It's not the 5th. It's the, not the 12th.
No.
The 26th. At 10.
Madam President, I'll withdraw my previous comment and say, yes, I do have something to say.
All right.
I just wanted to bring to the attention of Commissioner Grossman that the site plan review hearing was continued in progress last Thursday evening, and you weren't present. It got continued until September the 26th.
At 10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. And since you were not here last Thursday evening, you will need to watch the YouTube video if you want to participate and vote on that particular subject matter.
Okay.
And that was discussed with the applicants. Attorney, the applicant is Dries, and they're now represented by Rick Palo from Aronoff Resident Hunt. And we discussed that on the record that they really had no objection if you just watched the YouTube video and then participated on the 26th.
Okay, I'll do that.
We'll make sure staff gets that to your county email.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, it is 9:20, and we will begin the public hearing on the continuation to consider text amendments to the requirements and standards for the design and construction of streets and roadway facilities in Warren County. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thank you for your time this morning, and we thank you also and welcome the representatives from the development community here today. And also several of our township administrators are here, as well as Turtle Creek Township trustee Jonathan Sams, who also has a few slides to present.
So
to the-
before you
to the
begin
board.
your presentation, the clerk has asked me to ask you to please state your name
Okay,
for the
great.
record, please.
Great, thank you. David Mick, and I'm with the Warren County Engineers Office.
Great, thank you.
And before I forget, we also have a letter of support from Eric Reiners, Deerfield Township Administrator, who's not able to attend today. So the engineer's office, we've updated our roadway construction standards for your consideration. The last update of this size was 1995, so not something we do obviously every day. This has been in the works for the last several years. Just so much going on in the office. Is something we would seemingly pick up every spring, and we've met with representatives from the Ohio Valley Development Council a few times over that period, and there have been some additional questions that's come up from members of the council over the last several days. So we've been seeing an increase in pavement failures in recent years. Some of the theories that we have is that heavier construction vehicles, more axles, there's been a change in asphalt material composition over the last, several years also. Actually going back maybe, as many as 20 years. More porous, we get seemingly more water making it to the subgrade. Our standard for years has been full depth pavement on subgrade material, same as Butler County, Claremont County, Hamilton County. With us, that's predominantly been the method for construction, straight asphalt on existing subgrade. And we are recommending a change to include under drains and gravel along with the pavement, which will increase the cost of the typical section. We've, discussed this with some of the experts. Ohio Flexible, or the Flexible Payments of Ohio, met with their representatives. Their primary recommendation was to use under drains and granular material. We've done some research, technical papers and so forth, geotechnical engineers. Pretty much, the conclusion is that the best change we can make is to improve our sub-drainage under our subdivision pavement sections. So along with the change in composition to include under drains and granular material, we are also establishing several different default sections based on the number of lots. So 50 lots or less, we'd have a default section up to 7¼ inches of asphalt, 5 inches of gravel, and that increases as number of lots increase. The loading and the trucks, construction traffic, and so forth. We're also recommending additional testing, geotechnical testing, testing of the materials as they are constructed, and that would be something that we would be looking for from the developers with various phases of construction for the roadway. And a significant change also that's notable is the maintenance period. Right now, we have a maintenance period that starts 2 years after the top course of asphalt. We're recommending that the 2-year window start with the development of 2/3 of the subdivision section lots. A change that we had implemented several years ago and is included in these updated regulations, video inspection of storm sewers. That has really headed off a lot of problems. After construction of the storm sewers, we'll have utility companies coming in, boring utilities. We found utilities protruding through storm sewer sections, separated joints. That's really been very helpful to us before accepting the development. As far as I know, the Warren County Engineer's Office is the only county engineer's office that does not charge for inspection review time, and we plan to continue that practice. A little more detail in the typical sections, as you can see on the screen. We're looking at 1.25 inches of surface, 2 inches of intermediate, 4 inches of 301 base, an average of 5 inches of aggregate, again, along with the under drains. You can see the increased thickness in the asphalt section with increasing number of lots. We're also changing everything about this new section is just getting drainage off of the subgrade. So we've increased the slope of the subgrade itself to improve drainage, exaggerating that slope so that we can be sure to get the water into the under drains. What we're looking at is our roadway, our ditch section, and our curb and gutter section here. We're also changing our standard curb type. Our standard curb right now is this type C. Here you can see we have some complaints about the profile here. It's a little abrupt, so we're going to a more flat, more gentle curb section. So the next steps, after considering this, we will continue to work on our standard construction drawings. That really doesn't increase cost or anything, it's just updating the drawings themselves, standardizing those. We'll continue that effort. And we have been asked from some of the townships to consider other methods for construction traffic, haul routes, and so forth, to make sure that we consider the additional stresses on the pavement associated with that. And I'm going to see if, ask Neil and Kurt if there's anything else that they want to add to the presentation.
And you said you've received letters of support from Turtle Creek Township and Deerfield
Yeah,
Township?
Jonathan Sams is here, and I know he has some slides that he wanted to present. And Eric Reiners submitted an email, and we also have several administrators here that I believe would want to speak.
Great. Are there any questions before we?
Yeah, so what is this is prompted by the fact that our recent experience with these roadways is that there's more failure than we anticipated?
We have seen additional failures, stresses. I mean, things like, even concrete trucks breaking through the pavement, and that sort of thing. So fairly extensive failures in some subdivisions. Some of the subdivisions that we've had problems with over the years, Spartan Meadows, Bella Vista, Hopewell Meadows, Spring Haven. Our office actually put some money into each one of those to bring those up to standards. Shaker Run, Trails of Providence, some of our ditch sections. You go into some of our subdivisions, you see a little bit of roll, west subgrade, it just, that cross section. Even if we're not having major failures, you can see the stresses in the pavement when you look down the profile.
Okay, and so this applies to subdivisions being installed by private developers. They put in the roadway, and then the roadway gets dedicated to the public where we're responsible for it, correct?
Right.
So the issue is that they build the road, they pay for the road originally, and then it gets dedicated to us after we inspect it and make sure it's built according to our current regulations. And then from that point on, we're responsible to maintain it. And you're seeing increased failures, which are addressed by these changes to ameliorate future problems. Not that we're not going to have them, but you're trying to lessen the incidence of them.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay.
And I should say, typically the maintenance, in fact, exclusively is to the townships.
All right.
You see their interest here today.
And I'm sure we're going to hear from them. And then I asked yesterday, and I think that I received this memorandum where I was asking for comparison of other jurisdictions.
Yes, sir. I can put that up if you like.
Yeah, that'd be great. Could you do that? Because I have some questions about it. thanks for doing that promptly for me. I know I generated that yesterday afternoon, and you guys must have worked on that this morning. So, thanks very much. I can see Kurt and Neil out there. They got up bright and early today, but I heard you were open at 7:30, so this was... All right, and thanks for that. All right, so can you explain then what this document is showing to us?
Yeah, okay, so this, starting here on the left-hand column, this is our current standards, same as Warren County, Butler County, Claremont, Hamilton County. We all have, I mean, best I can tell from, you know, I believe I have the most recent information, that they use a 8.5-inch asphalt section straight on subgrade.
Okay, so this is demonstrating that our current standards our regulations on how you build these roads are the same as in Butler County and Claremont County.
Correct. They have full depth sections, same as ours.
What about Hamilton County, do you
Hamilton
know?
County's in there also.
Okay.
Yes, sir. I know Butler County's had some problems. They have gone to an under drain. I don't know when they use it. I don't know that they use it exclusively. I believe it's on a case-by-case basis. Maybe if they've had failures or something, they'll come back in with under drain.
So then you're showing us your proposed new standards, and then you're also comparing this, I guess, to Kenton County, the city of Lebanon, Delaware County, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So if you continue to the right, that second column from the left is our proposed section. And because some of these communities also increase their pavement section with the number of lots, I've broken that out here with the same approach. So 0 to 20 lots asphalt, 0 to 20 lots gravel, and then the total section. So we would be looking at, our default would be 7 1/4 inches of asphalt over 5 inches of granular, 12.25-inch section. And now currently, while it's almost exclusively full depth pavement on subgrade, Hamilton, Claremont, and Butler all have granular sections as options. I don't know if they're used all that often, but they do. So you can see we're pretty close, you know, to their current sections. 6 inches, over 6 inches of granular for Hamilton County, 12 altogether. So we're, you know, an inch less on the granular, an inch and a quarter more on asphalt. Look at these totals, you know, we're in line with what these other communities would be doing. Some variations here. Here's the Ohio Flexible Payment Study recommendation. We relied heavily too. There was a very good study performed in Kenton County for Northern Kentucky. A lot of participation from the area engineers, public works officials, and we, at the suggestion of the development group that we met with, we relied on that study quite a bit in coming up with our approach for determining these pavement sections.
That's the Ohio Flexible Pavement Studies you're referring to?
Well, that also, but a separate study was the Northern Kentucky study, and that's this existing Kenton County spec right here.
Okay.
And they are at, their base is 13.5 inches, 6.5 inches of asphalt over 7 inches of gravel, which is comparable to what we have. And as you look down, as we're increasing the number of lots, we kind of leapfrog each other a little bit, you know, the Kenton County section and ours, just depending on, you know, we use the Ohio pavement design method, which is a little bit different than Kentucky's, and it explains the difference here that you see in the total section.
Okay, so, did you all meet with developers in our county to discuss these proposals?
We met with a subcommittee of the Ohio Valley Development Council.
And do they object to these?
we seem to be coming to, I thought, some convergence on where we were, and then here in the last several days, we've heard some additional objections.
And it's the objection that you mentioned increased cost, that it costs more. Do you know how much more it costs?
Yeah. We may not have all these costs exactly right, but I believe this for conversation good enough.
Not for me.
This is, what we're looking at is our current, and that's a little hard to see. So our current standard with 8.5 inches on, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more. All right, so this leftmost column here, that is our current standard, 8.5 inches of asphalt. This is the cost per lot. Now, that assumption is 65-foot lot. So it's going to vary a little bit. Your larger lot development's going to be more than that. This is the existing cost per lot, $52.35. Now, we would consider this, of course, to be a light standard, and our experience has proved, that that's the case. We are seeing some failures that we shouldn't. So going up to our base, that is call it $7,200. You're looking at an increase of about $2,000 for a 65-foot wide lot. $3,000 perhaps you get in these larger, lot developments. And it really doesn't, as we increase in pavement thickness, the cost really doesn't go up all that much. So you can see it's not really the asphalt, it's that initial increase in cost due to the under drains and the granular. And we compared that to the Kenton County section. So they've been using this section in northern Kentucky, and the increase of our section to theirs is about $1,000 a lot. And that's just because the composition is just a little bit, how they handle the under drains a little bit different. And we use a leveling course. They do not, so their base asphalt course is a little cheaper. Otherwise, it's comparable.
All right, well, so the increase is rather substantial. And is that the primary objection that you're hearing from the developers?
It is.
All right.
And so we're doing this because this is your proposal because you're seeing increase in repairs needed once it's turned over to the county's control, and what is that?
Yeah, increase in repairs, and it's a philosophical difference in, what is the best approach for roadway construction. As I mentioned earlier, if you were to review technical papers, I don't know if you'd find an opinion that constructing full depth pavement on subgrade is a better approach than granular, with under drains. And that's the approach that we would like to move toward, and that's really the reason that you see for the difference in the cost. You can see that if you start subtracting an inch of asphalt here or there, it really doesn't make that much difference.
Have you calculated our cost of repairing these failures on an annual basis, and then compared that with the current standards, and then assessed what our failure rate and cost projections would be if you use the new standards?
Yeah, we have not. We don't have good data on that. We're relying on feedback from, we're the engineer, of course, for the townships. And we rely on feedback from the townships too, on the number of repairs that they have. We're not involved.
Okay,
The
so the
engineer's office is not
townships are
involved in
paying for the repairs, and they've not shared with you,
We haven't asked for it. You-
okay? So we can't make that comparison to know what the difference might be, or what would be projected to be.
Yeah, we haven't tried to do that.
Okay, so is the real, is it the townships that have generated the request to you to do this, or is this something that you all do?
No, we've been involved too. I mean, we're involved in trying to get these subdivisions turned over. So when we perform the final punch list, we walk those sites with the townships, and we share and hear the concerns from the townships when we see failures and trying to get, these sections turned over.
Okay.
So we are involved from that standpoint.
Kurt, you got something to add?
Hi, Kurt Weber, Chief Deputy Engineer, Warren County Engineers Office. Just wanted to add a couple things to what Dave said. He's right on the money that, that study that was done in Kenton County, I mean, that was something that Fisher, Henry Fisher paid for to do that study, which I think says a lot, and a credit to Fisher. I know Joey Wall's here today from Fisher. And that was something that, they spent, what was it, Dave, a year or so? And about how much did you say? $1 million. I think we heard about $1 million, from Dave Stroop of Fisher. So, I mean, they really spent some considerable time going through that, and we feel like we're right there with that, comparable to that standard, what we're proposing. That was one point I wanted to make. The other point was when we had issues in Shaker Run recently, and you guys will remember that, it's probably about a year and a half ago, and we came to the commission and basically worked with Fisher and Dries and Turtle Creek Township, basically because the roads had been accepted, and then we came up with, basically we paid the public side, the county and the township paid half, and then Fisher and Dries paid half. But I tell you what, the time that went into that was unbelievable, the back and forth, and just because there was issues that the township, had because of the construction vehicles accessing, further sections in the back of Shaker Run. And so substantial deterioration, damage, ultimately, it took weeks, months to work through this, and that's frustration as well. That's what, and we even had a pavement engineer, retired pavement engineer from ODOT, come down to take a look at this and say, hey, we just wanted to make sure we weren't missing anything. And first question he asked us was, he goes, well, is this pavement section, is it on gravel and under drains, or is it full depth, on subgrade, which is compacted dirt? And we said, oh no, this is, compacted dirt, subgrade, no under drains, no gravel. And he's like, oh. That, to tell you, this is something that's really a long time coming that we needed to do. And that's why we're doing it. It's consistent with what Kenton County's done, under Fisher's leadership, to their credit. That's all I wanted to add.
So how much was the fix in Shaker, just as an example, since we've talked about that?
I don't remember. I want to say it was, and Jonathan or Joey, if you remember, or Neil, it was under $100,000, right? It was, I want to say it was in the $80,000 range, $75,000, $80,000.
A party, so half or half of it,
That was total.
total.
So then yeah. And there's another another part of that, I think it was around 24,000, 25,000 that was completed this past year that we still need to bill out on that. But anyway, that was one case. But we've had it not just in Shaker Run, Trails
Sure,
of
I'm just trying to
Shaker
get an understanding, because
Yeah,
again,
I mean-
you've got two very reputable developers that are there, that are still in business, and yeah, it's not that huge of a deal. We'll split it with you after a bunch of pains, it sounds like. But what if they didn't step up, and that's just one isolated area, as opposed to what's that gonna look like in the future? And so I was just trying to get a scale of, it's not insignificant amounts of money
No,
that, to fix these problems, because, again, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, the second or third homeowner, even if it's the first homeowner, doesn't really care who built the road initially or whatever. This is a public road, and
Right.
it's failing, fix it.
Correct.
Is the problem happening only in those areas where there is continued building going on for a long period of time?
I don't know if I would say only, but that definitely has a lot to do with it.
The reason I'm
Yeah.
asking that is because obviously it's the weight of the traffic that can cause the failure, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so if you've got a subdivision that builds out relatively quickly and they then finish their roadway, I'm guessing that those subdivisions you're not experiencing these problems. But if you've got a subdivision with a lot of phases and a lot of construction, that traffic with heavy, concrete vehicles bringing in, that type of material or other construction traffic, that's where your problem is occurring probably, or primarily.
It's more dramatic. I mean, that's what happened in Shaker Run.
Right.
I don't know that that's always the case. I don't know if you've got any
Well,
thoughts on that.
I will say there's a difference too in our, a lot of our subdivisions are open ditch, the eastern part of the county, northern part. And those open ditch sections too, sometimes it doesn't necessarily, those could be a low number of lots and we still have problems with those. Just, you don't get the water off of the pavement. You've got some shoving,
When
that
you say
occurs.
open ditch, these don't have storm sewers?
Well, yeah, usually they're driveway culverts. They'd have limited amount of storm sewer, and you don't have the curb and gutter to help contain the pavement. So that, there's a difference, there too in the performance between the open ditch and the curb sections. Just wanted to make that distinction.
Okay.
Trustee Sams, I understand you wish to address this issue. Come on down.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
My name's Jonathan Sams, Turtle Creek Township trustee, 670 North State Route 123, Lebanon, Ohio. Thank you for this opportunity today. So, speaking to the issue of open ditches, Turtle Creek Township has a lot of open ditches. We get a lot of rain. We are blessed with water, and that's an absolute truth. We are blessed with water. A lot of places don't have enough water. We do. Getting rid of water is our challenge in Turtle Creek Township. Sometimes we'll get 4, 5, 6 inches of rain in an hour, and you guys, of course, get calls on that, and we get calls on that when that happens. Challenge is that once you start putting in stormwater systems, once you take responsibility for water, you're responsible for it. You got to get rid of it, and we have no place to get rid of it too. So we let nature take its course on some of those issues. So it's something to keep in the back of your mind. It'd be millions and millions and millions of dollars for us to put in stormwater systems and drains, and then have to maintain that. And so we're a township. We're still under rural zoning code, and so that's how we apply what we do. How do I get my? We just push those arrows, is that correct?
Yep.
All right. So this is a recent repair that we did in Shaker Run. You can see the asphalt on top of the clay there. The brown clay that you see, and I'm going to step away from the mic, but I won't speak.
Okay.
I pointed out the brown clay on that slide, that's good clay. The green clay, that's bad clay, all right? So as you can see, we had to do a full depth repair on this particular location at the entrance of Shaker Run. What happens is with that bad clay gets waterlogged. And so water gets into that. Actually, the clay begins to rot a little bit in there. It's soft. It doesn't get rid of the water. It just holds the water in there. Sometimes you'll have water flowing through and it will actually gush up through those bad locations. And you get what's called asphalt shove. What's asphalt shove? Asphalt shove is where, over a period of time, as weight goes past it, sometimes construction traffic, which definitely makes it worse, but it's not exclusive, as I'll show you in some subsequent slides coming up, that clay then pushes down and shoves out. Well, what happens is the asphalt pushes down on that and shoves out, and then that has to be repaired. Very expensive repairs that go on with these right here. This one right here, I think, was about $6,500 for that small section that you're seeing right there. Plus, it forecloses traffic out of one of the two entrances in and out of Shaker Run when we have to go through and make those kind of repairs. That's right at the entrance of Shaker Run right there.
How long does it take to repair that, Jonathan?
About a week. So as you can see, we did full depth repair on this one, went back through, laid asphalt all the way down through. You can't go back and put aggregate in once you don't have aggregate. You actually have to go back and lay asphalt in there. Some more pictures of the clay and what it looks like, and you can see how that would shove aside. You can see the difference between the bad clay and the good clay. The good clay up there is obviously moving water, but the bad clay is not. This is Shaker Run. We have a number of locations at Shaker Run that are deteriorating as a result of the lack of substrata under the asphalt. Number of locations.
And Jonathan, going back to questions that I asked, is Shaker Run the primary area where you've experienced these failures?
That's a lovely question. Here's Cedar Trace, one where construction is complete. We still have to go back and make repairs on it as it's deteriorating, as traffic takes over. Or Buckeye Fields, and we have this all over the township because Turtle Creek Town, I can't speak for every township, I just know my township. Turtle Creek Township has a lot of clay, and because there's a lot of clay, we have this problem throughout the township. So we've been working with the engineer's office since 2014 to try to implement these standards with the aggregate underneath in the drain, so it moves the water. Because if it doesn't move the water, it's going to accumulate where there's bad clay. It's going to accumulate where there's bad clay. Then there's going to be repair problems. You know, I can go back and I can make repairs. I can make these roads look pretty, but I can't make them permanent. I can't fix the problem. The only time to fix this problem is to do it right in the first instance, which is to put the aggregate under the asphalt before it goes in, so the water drains off. It's common sense. The way we do our driveways. You know, we don't do our driveways right on clay. We put them on gravel. Why do we do that? So we can evacuate the water so that we don't get that shove that we otherwise get in our subdivisions. Absolutely, construction traffic makes it much, 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 much worse. But it's not exclusive. Automobile traffic also deteriorates the asphalt over a period of time, then we have to do that. And see, what happens is there's a choice here. The developer goes through, puts the roadways in correctly, and then they're implemented properly. I can't go back and fix that later, right? I can do spot repairs, I can do surface repairs, but I can't fix the drainage issue that appears later on. The only time to do that is when construction has happened. Furthermore, it's a question of cost. Does the developer who makes money on these bear the cost, or does the community who pays taxes on it bear the cost of implementing this properly in the first instance, one way or the other? And of course, we try to watch our taxes, make sure everything's going right. And since the developer's going to be the one who's going to be making the money, since the developer's going to be the one who's going to be pricing the lots, then we feel that's the proper location, the proper parties to bear the burden of these costs. Once it's dedicated, then it becomes us, and we'll take care of our roads. We'll implement our taxes accordingly, but we want it to be implemented properly in the first place so as to maximize road life and to minimize taxes over the long run. That's what our goal on this is. Now going back, we do recognize the $2,000 per lot, and that's an expense. But we think it's a properly located expense when that happens so that we don't have these problems. Our resurfacing costs, these are material costs on these, our resurfacing costs are not going down. 2019, now the base repair, that's the very bottom layer, $59 per ton in 2019. Now it's $85, 45% increase is what we've had in the last 5 years. The intermediate coat going to the top, that's not the surface coat, that's not the top layer, that's the intermediate coat. 2019, $65 per ton, now we're up to $106.68 per ton. 64.12% increase over 5 years. Surface coat, $66.50, now we're up to $102.70. That's a 54% increase. So the costs of repairs, the cost of installation, that is what it is. Of course, as you go through time, that will increase, the installation costs will increase. But our repair costs are increasing as well. And so as time goes by, it's just gonna get more and more and more expensive for us to repair these roadways. So it's really important to us, really important to our taxpayers that we get these roadways installed properly so that it's not just sitting on the clay, which would get that asphalt shove. Instead, it's sitting on a good aggregate with good drains, which will hold up longer, will hold the asphalt and hold the construction traffic and move forward. And so we appreciate the engineer's office on this over many years, the discussions they've had with us and other townships, and certainly we strongly support the text changes that they're proposing for the street standards.
What's the total cost that you're spending on repairing work?
We have a single budget, so our budget has gone up from about $350,000 a couple years ago, $450,000, and now we're up to about $750,000 per year in total roadway repairs.
And do you have an idea of what your repair costs would be if the roads were installed the way it's being proposed now? Do you have any comparison with other communities?
Sadly, I cannot provide that information. It's just my understanding that we'll go from about 10 years to about 15 years for roadway repairs.
So you would have an increase of 50% of,
Give or
you'd
take.
save about 50% of your costs then.
I won't go that far because, and I don't want to make that representation. For example, this last year we did Drake Road, right? That's included in that $750,000. Needed to be done in front of the Lebanon school. And so I don't think that has anything to do with what our subdivision standards are one way or the other. I think it'd be unfair for me to represent that.
Okay, so when you
But certainly, there's a significant increase as a result of being placed on the clay.
Okay, so the $750,000 is all your roadways, but that's not limited to ones in these subdivisions that we're talking about now.
That's correct. Absolutely right.
So you don't have a breakdown of what that cost is?
We do not, nor really can we, because we are, Turtle Creek Township and its development, we are kind of the next township, right? The next one that's coming along. And so we're having subdivisions being built all the time and approved all the time. So I don't think that we have a good enough track record to be able to present those numbers, not until we have a 15-year time period in front of you all.
So you've got a schedule, right, where every township road is scheduled to be repaired, because there's an end of life to that, and you're saying normally that's like a 15-year period. And that way you plan that out years in advance, and we know in 2027, we're gonna go take care of blank.
That's right.
And what you're seeing is inside of the subdivisions that have been built in the last 20 years, instead of a 15-year repair cycle, it's more like 10.
Yeah.
And in some cases, it's more egregious than that.
So, well, we always have spot problems, which you saw. We always have problems where there's actually water flowing under, and it just stays in that clay, and so we have to deal with that. So we have all these spot repairs, which deteriorate the roadway, which cost money, and then make the subdivisions look unattractive, get complaints from the owners, and that impacts property values overall in our overall county and how people view and appreciate our county.
Which we don't know, or do we, what the experience would be with these new regulations, because we don't know of people who've implemented them in a long enough period of time to have an idea of what the change in cost is?
I don't know. I'm, I can speak, when I speak from the township, I speak anecdotally from the township's perspective. I can tell you what our experience is. And so we are a microcosm of the bigger issue. And I will tell you certainly, and I don't know, because we have a number of township administrators here, and I don't know what their discussions with the engineer have been. But I know that Turtle Creek has had significant conversations because it's an expense. It's a significant expense. Roadway repairs are a significant expense to the township, and we want to make sure that we're moderating those expenses. And so, to us, this has been an important issue. To us, this is each one of our road and bridge supervisors. We've had 3 over the period that we've been discussing. Have said, yeah, we strongly recommend the aggregate because we believe it maintains the roadways for a much longer period of time.
So I'm curious, I know that the standards are likely different because the road types are different, but you mentioned Drake Road and other township roads for which you plan to repair and replace over periods of time. Do the standards that dictate the construction of those roads meet or exceed what is being proposed today?
They exceed what's going on in the subdivision, what our standards are right now, correct? Hold on, come on up here. Hey, Mick.
I may not answer this directly, but our new county roads that we construct, they're all heavy, use of aggregate and under drains and a thicker pavement section than what we're recommending here for the subdivision roads. So I don't know that I answered your question.
Does that include Drake Road?
Well, that would include something like Drake Road, yes. If we were to construct Drake Road today, we would use under drains and gravel. And I suspect our roadway superintendent just came in. I'm going to ask a question.
I can answer Drake Road, Neil Tunison, County Engineer. Drake Road was built back in the day when we built 8.5 inches of asphalt on compacted subgrade, because that was the accepted method of construction. So that's what we're seeing now is pavement failures on Drake Road due to increased heavier truck traffic.
So when was that constructed and when did you see the failures?
It was about 2000, we built that in 2003, 2004, somewhere in that.
It's about 20 years, 15 years?
Yeah, 20 years ago, right.
Okay. So are there any roadways that were constructed with higher standards where you can make, I'm looking for a comparison here.
Yes, I can give you a perfect example would be Irwin Simpson Road between Mason Montgomery Road and Duke Boulevard. We built that road back in 1998, and it was 11 inches of asphalt on gravel subgraded. I mean, it is 11 inches of asphalt, but we put that in there because we were anticipating heavy truck traffic, going back into an industrial park along, Duke Boulevard. But we have not had any pavement failures on that stretch of road at all. And likewise on Duke Boulevard.
And how long has that been installed? For more than 20 years?
25 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Neil.
For the record, that was Neil Tunison, Warren County Engineer. Okay, I think that's all that I have today, unless you guys have further questions.
We appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to hear this. It's an important issue, and I know that you have to hear from the developers and the other townships, and I'm grateful for the work that you do.
Great, thank you. Okay, I see others from the townships. Is there anyone else from the townships who wish to speak? Okay.
Can you ask them if they all agree with what's been presented?
I will. Okay.
Steve Pegram, represent Hamilton Township. I'm the administrator there. Just to echo everything that's been said so far, we're experiencing the same thing. Hamilton Township is close to being, having the most road miles in the county. Currently, it's Deerfield Township. We're right behind them. We'll probably exceed 100 road miles here very soon. We are having the same issues, and we are experiencing in subdivisions that are only 3 to 5 years old, having to do a lot of repairs. So where we used to go in and use our street maintenance money and our tax levies and revenue for maintenance on 15, 20-year-old subdivisions, we're doing a lot of repairs now on roads that are a year old, 3 years old, 5 years old. Seeing all these issues, and a lot of them are the construction traffic, but we're also just seeing these failures all over the place. The other thing that I would note, and we can't go back and fix the problem, but it's a problem that our township and others are going to have to address for a long time, is as we go back and look at roads that we're going to repave and repair, we're doing some core sampling, and we're finding a lot of roads weren't even built to the standard that was in place at the time. So just want to echo and remind everyone that it's important that when we're dedicating the roads, that they're properly inspected and built the first time, because we're doing a lot of repairs on roads now and finding they weren't even built to the standard in place at the time, where we're seeing some roads that, you know, we're supposed to have 7.5 inches of asphalt and only have 4. But as a township, every year, and I know some of you were asking the financial question, I don't have exact numbers, but I can tell you that every year we're paving less roads because we're having to do more maintenance. And a lot of our maintenance is in 3, 5, 7-year-old roads, not our 15, 20, 25-year roads. You have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good morning. Matt Clark with Clear Creek Township, 7593 Bunnell Hill Road. I won't take up much of the commission's time because Mr. Sams and Mr. Pegram pretty well covered most of the concerns that we have. But to a direct question that Mr. Grossman asked of Mr. Sams about construction traffic, and are we seeing the degradation in pavement more on areas of active construction? And he indicated yes. Well, of course that is the case, but it's been our experience in Clear Creek Township, even with, you know, dead-end subdivisions where it's fully built out, you're not seeing construction traffic through there. You do have heavier vehicles on it, and we've seen pavement degradation in those subdivisions that were 3, 5 years old. Just like Mr. Pegram said, we've got asphalt pumping. You know, not only the asphalt shove that Mr. Sam said, but it's actually pumping water up through a crack, a transverse crack in there. And, you know, some of our largest subdivisions, Winding Creek, Cypress Ridge, Stone Ridge, north and south, some of those streets in there that are merely 5 years old have degraded to the point where we actually have to do large-scale patches for them. We bought a roller. We had to. The patches are so large. So thank you for the time. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Gus? Crystal, can you get the mic for him? Can you get it? Right. Thank you.
Gus is a veteran, he knows how to do that.
Gus Edwards, Wayne Township, 6050 North Clarksville Road, Waynesville, Ohio, 45068. Just like to echo some of the comments that my fellow colleagues have presented, and would like to thank the County Engineer's Office for what we've been pushing for probably for 15 years is better streets and subdivisions. Again, once there's turnover to the township, then, you know, we're obviously there to maintain them. So the better that we can get them the first time around, then, you know, the longer they're going to last and the less repair we're going to have to do. You know, it's just plain and simple with dollars and cents. If you do it right the first time, then, or do a better job the first time, not saying what we've done in the past is wrong. We continuously have to learn. With this new process with the under drains and the gravel, you know, it's going to take time to tell. But I think all indications are that it will be better, because a lot of our subdivision roads are put on clay base, and if you get moisture water down into that underneath 8 inches, you know, you're going to go through freeze thaw cycles that are going to move that asphalt and start pumping it and cracking it. And most of the time, the township, the best that we can do is just simply maintain the surface course or the wear course. When we get in to try to do full depth reclamation, and that's, you know, that's way out of most townships' budgets. where it really, it takes a hit to them. So if you do it right the first time, and I think the commissioners are smart enough that they're gonna see what the other areas are doing and what the Dave Mick and the county engineer's office put into thought into this process, should make it work. I kind of draw the correlation to if you were to had a hobby of building vehicles or whatever, and you built a dump truck on your own, not being an engineer, and you put it on a Volkswagen chassis, what would you really have? You wouldn't have a dump truck that would hold very much or last very long. So put the trust in your county engineers that have the education and the background and experience, and follow their recommendation. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Gus. Okay, who else would like to speak on this topic? Please come forward, make sure you state your name and address for the record. Good morning.
Thank you very much. My name is Matt Maines. I'm the current president of the Ohio Valley Development Council. We're the development arm of the Home Builders Association. And just want to thank you guys, and I want to thank definitely the engineers. I know they put a ton of work into this, and I honestly don't think we're as far apart as it sort of seems on the surface as kind of what we're looking at. So we certainly understand the county's motivation for the revised pavement design and agree that there's room for improvement with it. We think, I think looking at some of the information that you've been presented today, you can see it's pretty consistent with what other municipalities around, but with that being said, like I mentioned, there is room for improvement. What we're trying to do is just sort of balance out the areas for improvement with the cost to development. And that's really where sort of we struggle, and we're trying to rein in cost everywhere right now with so much of the cost of new homes coming from unseen costs, whether it be regulations, environmental, things like that, and the inflation pushing house prices. Our concern is making houses unaffordable. And as he mentioned, this new pavement spec is pushing it to $1,700 to $2,000 a lot, and you extrapolate that over a 100-lot subdivision, that's $80,000 of development that's kind of burdened by the homeowners or the potential home buyers. And so we're trying to find ways to sort of pull that back, and what we don't want is homeowners cutting cost and things that are more noticeable, things like finishes and sizes and landscaping that are going to bring down sort of over time property values. And the other thing that we don't want is to put Warren County at a competitive disadvantage, where if the costs are sort of pushing it up to a point, and again, it's sort of a death by 1,000 cuts. This is one of many cost increases that we're seeing, and is it going to push them to look elsewhere where it's maybe more affordable, or as a developer, are we going to look elsewhere to where we think we can develop at a more affordable rate? So
one of my former colleagues would have said, I certainly hope so.
What's that? I'm sorry?
One of my former colleagues would have said, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, sure. And
one of my current colleagues might have said that too.
So I think what we're looking for is just a balance. So, we pointed out to the Kenton County spec a lot, and I think that's the best example. I just happen to be the Land Development Council president in Northern Kentucky as well, so I hear a lot about everything over there. And really, there was a lot of time and effort put into that, and I think it's a good spec. In a lot of ways, it's very similar, especially on the collector streets. It's very similar, and that's really where we see the biggest problems, which are those entrances and things like that. But on some of the smaller roads, the sub-collectors, just the differences in the way their under drain is done and some of the other things sort of cut those increased costs in half. So instead of looking at a $1,700 to a $2,000 cost increase per lot, it pulls it down to about an $800 to $1,000 cost increase a lot. So, I mean, again, that's a lot of money when you start looking at 100, 200, 400 lot subdivisions, and it's a lot of savings. So, we're just asking that, you consider this alternative, moving forward to try to rein in some of these costs and still improve the design and make sure the money being spent on the front end isn't sort of outweighing. Is there a way to maybe spend less money on the front end, but still achieve that increased lifespan of the pavement?
What's the average cost of a lot in Warren County these days? 100 grand?
100 grand, yeah, probably.
So even though the proposal before us is like a 38 to 42% increase on the development cost on one section of this, right? The 1,900 bucks, $2 grand, a lot, depending, obviously, the bigger the subdivision, the more traffic you're gonna see, so the higher the development standard. I think there's some correlation with that, and it makes sense to me. So overall, if it's a couple $1,000 bucks a lot, and like you said, death by 1,000 cuts, that's about a 2% increase in the macro cost of the lot, roughly.
Sure.
On average.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I don't know that, I understand you've actually made a proposal, but what you're saying is philosophically, you agree, because I think it's common sense, that in the collector roads, there should be a higher standard of development, and all this kind of makes sense. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're saying on a cul-de-sac road that's got 15 lots down this one cul-de-sac road, there's just not going to be as much traffic, and so maybe it's a lesser development standard?
Yeah, and I'm not an engineer, and so, you know, I'll look to some of my colleagues that put together a lot of the information. You know, I'm just comparing the cost of a road in, say, some of the sub-collectors in Kenton County versus this new standard in Warren County, and that's the difference. So I don't necessarily know if it's a lesser pavement design. It's just there's some different, whether it be the curb width, whether it be the type of under drain they use. It's less expensive than this proposal, and I guess that's where I'm looking for, is just can we sort of cut some of the cost in half to try, and it's the jump. It's the kind of jump up in the pavement cost, sort of right away, because again, it's going to jump up 30 to 40% in, you know, overnight for the developers, and that's a tough thing to transition to.
And again, we've worked well with the development community for decades here, and I don't know that they go away, because we're Ohio's first or second fastest growing county, and have been for a long time. And I think one of the appeals is the residents like nice communities, nice developments, and I think common sense dictates when
Or
we're
they
hearing.
wouldn't spend $100,000
On
on
a
a lot.
Right, they would go somewhere else. That's the free market, and they have those opportunities. That when you are hearing from multiple credible sources that new subdivision roads are failing in 3 to 7 years routinely, that there is a problem, that something has to be done. And so we have the definition of one something is what our county engineer just put forward, and you're saying you have another something that you agree with the premise, yeah, we should do something, but you're saying the something is different than what they're saying.
Yes.
But without a specific something
Well, I mean,
to propose.
It's again, I compare the proposed Warren County spec to the Kenton County spec, and I honestly, they would probably be a lot better at explaining the differences than I would. Where I look at it is it's put a lot of time and effort into it. It's performed well, and I think they would agree that it's performed well. And on these smaller collector roads, it's half of the increase in cost.
So you're saying you're okay with the Kenton County spec?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, what's the difference between the Kenton County spec and what's being proposed today?
Do you think, would you have a better handle? You probably have a better handle. I think part of it is the curb widths. I think part of it is the type of under drain that's used. I'll let him.
Since we all were talking about Henry Fisher and Kenton County, and he developed it, and you liked it, is there a reason why you guys wouldn't propose the Kenton County specs if they like that?
Yeah, there's a couple of differences.
Well, I'm guessing that there are. Why don't you tell us what they are and why you like those better?
So looking one difference is Kenton County, their standard, this is all about drainage, right? We've heard water and subgrade, and that is the whole reason for this change, and I mentioned the exaggerated subgrade slope. It's all about getting the water off of this subgrade.
Kenton County for less than 50 lots is actually tougher than what you're proposing, isn't it?
They are, yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a little difference in where we draw the line at, different levels of development. One reason that's been pointed out to us for the difference in cost is they have an under drain that they lay on the subgrade. So it's a flat under drain. Sometimes they prop it up behind the curb. Sometimes they lay it on the subgrade. Versus the traditional approach of actually excavating a trench and I'm trying to get this cursor over there, but this is an under drain here. So this is a trench that, extends about a foot, 18 inches below the gravel subbase. And especially in these curb and gutter developments, you come in, you've got yards sloping down, and you get groundwater, coming in from the sides. So this does two things. It intercepts drainage flowing in laterally from outside the roadway coming in, and it also takes the water off the subgrade. Believe it or not, you do get a fair amount of water, more than you think, through the pavement itself, cracks and everything else, into the subgrade, and it drains that and takes it into a catch basin. So just intuitively, if this whole thing is about drainage, we're changing our standards. We believe the under drain built to the traditional way of, locating this 18 inches or so below the curb and gutter is going to be more effective than laying the under drain on the subgrade or propping it up, at a higher elevation. It just doesn't seem like you'd have nearly as effective drainage and transport of water as this approach.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, so the Kenton County solution doesn't talk about that particular issue.
They just do it a different way, and it's a way that I don't think would be as effective.
Okay, well, when you say you don't think it would be as effective, that's just that's a guess, or that's, you got some, we got some experience with, obviously Kenton County's building to that spec now, right? And do we know what their experience is with repairs based on that? How long have they been using this?
It's a relatively new standard. This has been the under drain approach has been used for decades. And their approach, I don't know I don't know if they're the only entity that uses that same approach, but it's relatively new.
Okay.
And so I don't know if there's a track record there.
Kurt, you wanna?
Kurt Weber, Engineer's Office. Yeah, just Dave hit the nail on the head there. This is a standard way of doing it, the way we're showing it with the under drains, 18 inches below. That's the way all of our road improvement projects that the Engineer's Office and the TID does are built. So that's in the way ODOT does things. So it's the traditional standard way to do things. Not saying that Kenton County may not work, but we know this will work.
Well, because our roads are actually curved, correct? Like from the center point out, because you want the water to run to the gutters on either side of the road, correct? And so all you're saying is that one method that particular entity or political subdivision uses is just laying some sort of a drain pipe on the gravel, the new gravel that's there, and then putting asphalt on top of that, and it kind of seeps in it. Or the way engineers have done it for a very long time is you dig a small trench along either side, and you put your drain there to where all of the water flows in and has this area specifically designed to catch the water.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So does anybody use proposals that you're now making anywhere in Ohio, and do you have any idea of what their experience is with this?
Well, we do it on all the roads we constructed, right?
That's why I asked the question.
Yes, absolutely, yeah, it's a good question. And, you know, 20, 25, 30 years ago, we did do some full depth, asphalt on top of dirt, compacted subgrade, and we've switched over the years to this, granular subbase like we're proposing, and it performs much better because it gets the water out from underneath the road. Like Dave said, it's all about drainage.
Yeah, but I'm talking about, again, not roads that are being traveled, constantly like what you're talking about, but subdivisions, which are, once they're built out, are way lower traffic, and we've all established that traffic makes a big difference. So my question is, are there communities that have a longer experience with something like what you're proposing today that you know of?
Well, Greene County has, I believe, I don't see a full depth section there, so it's a little bit lighter asphalt section than what we're proposing. I believe it was, well, go to it real quick.
So am I wrong too about something else here? Are you proposing the same kind of specifications in these subdivisions that you've been building the county roads to that we're responsible for at the get-go? Is that what you're doing? Yes?
As far as the philosophy of using granular and under drains, yes.
Okay. And
But
so,
the philosophy, not the specifications. These specifications, I understood you to say, are less than but the same kind of drainage system is consistent, but the specs are not.
all right, and so, and you're not familiar though, again, I'm talking about subdivisions now, whether anybody else in Ohio is using that kind of philosophy or specification in their subdivision regulations.
Greene County, and I did not see a full depth section there, but they are using 7 inches of asphalt over 4 inches of granular, and that would be under drained also. Delaware County, they use a little less granular, more asphalt than we do. That's this column here. Our default section is a little bit heavier, but then as you go down, they increase above ours all the way through. 9 inches of asphalt over 4 for 50 lots. 10.5 inches of asphalt over 4 inches of gravel for 150 lots. So they are, where we're at 8.25, they're at 10.5. So they're quite a bit heavier than us as far as the asphalt thickness.
And that's Delaware County, which is usually the fastest growing county. If we're second or third, they're the fastest.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the Kenton County question. It sounds to me, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if there's somebody else that's gonna speak up for developers here that might have a difference of opinion. So is it your position that you would prefer that they impose as new standards, the same standards as in Kenton County?
Yes, yeah.
And what's the difference in cost? So it's half the cost.
Even though Kenton County's standards on less than 50 lots is more strenuous than the proposal, it's all about this depth of the drain and cutting that out? Is that what you're saying?
A different type of drain. Yeah, I mean, that's probably the bulk of the cost. Yeah, if you want to come on. This is,
Hey guys, Joey Wall, Fisher Homes Land Development. In Kenton County typically, so when we went through this, when Henry Fisher did with the county 12, 15 years ago, and invested all this money into doing the research with the engineers in that area, they basically came to consensus that, hey, if we're gonna add gravel and under drain, we can save on pavement thickness, on asphalt, and the cost. So there's a little bit of give and take. And with that, basically, like Dave said, they did away with the intermediate course. There's also no bonding periods in Kenton County. So basically, we provide the reassurance review it with their inspectors, make sure it's good before anything goes down, the pavement goes down, and if it's, the ground's an issue, the location, the time of year, they'll make us bond it. But typically, 90% of the time, we don't have to carry a bond in Kenton County either, because we provided this thicker section with the granular subbase. Now, we could get down through all these dimensions and say that, we're 2 inches here, 2 inches there. Well, that's a cost, over 100 lots. So it's a lot. And that's where we're at is, we need to find this middle ground, maybe closer to Kenton County. Like, if we're going to provide the granular subbase, can we do with intermediate course? Can we reduce bonding periods? That's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah,
Comparing the two.
I totally appreciate that, and I understand you want to keep the costs down as much as you can. But it's clear, it's like the cost actually isn't going down, it's just who's paying for it. And so, because, what I'm not hearing is in Kenton County, they have this much experience that has extended, that's remedied the challenge that they were looking to remedy. Like, I don't know if this is an apples to apples comparison. I mean, the engineer's office is the one that's introduced this into the discussion. They also have this flexible pavement study, and I don't know why this one versus this one is better, but to me, I'm looking at this to say, look, I don't believe $2,000 added on to the cost of a $100,000 lot is a make or break for people who are building $4,000 or $5,000+ homes here. I understand that it's one piece of a puzzle and a death by 10,000 paper cuts. I get that. But what I want to make sure is that those that are benefiting from the improvement are the ones that are paying for the improvement, and that it doesn't end up being a cost that is unfairly borne to all other taxpayers. Because the cost isn't going away, we're just shifting who's responsible for it. And so if in the subdivision, the people who are living in the subdivision ostensibly are the ones that are benefiting from the roads in the subdivision, and we're deeming them, even by you accepting some other standard, we know they're inadequate, the solution that is proffered up, has to be one that actually returns to this set of taxpayers, the benefit. So they're not, if it's typically been 15 years before the township has to invest in those roads at some base level, then we should be trying to get to that same 15 years with the repairs at the same level, because I'm not interested in the taxpayers picking up more of the cost. So that's what I'm trying to get my arms around, is I hear the township saying, taxpayers are picking up this cost at a much heftier pace now, and it's assuming more of our budgets now, and so we don't think that that's right. You're saying we don't want to pay more, which I appreciate and understand, but what I don't know is if the solution gets us back to the same expectation that the taxpayers have around when they need to, what they need and when they need to invest in the roads.
Sure, yeah, and so I think the difference is we're saying that we believe this change will get to that point. So if, for instance, there's $100,000 of road repairs within 5 years, we're saying that we believe that this other spec will eliminate that, whereas, maybe it's that $100,000 is saved by the township and that $100,000 is spent on the front end. However, this new spec and the change and the difference is going to cause us to spend $200,000 on the front end. So it's sort of, it's what's your rate of return on the investment
I mean, I
up front.
totally understand it, but I just need some evidence of that. Like, what is it that you can show me that says this development standard at half the cost will give us the same return on investment? That's the thing I'm looking for. Because I'm okay with that. I don't want us to build and invest more money than it costs to get that, to return to the status quo, if you will. But I'm not interested in spending less money to get us part of the distance either. So that's what I'm looking for, is what is the evidence that spending half of it, I mean, I hear Kenton County does this, okay, but does Kenton, that problem that they were trying to solve, A, is it the same problem? But B, are the townships, or however their roadway repair system works, are they saying that it's working the same as it did before the standard?
Oh, it's definitely improved.
It's
there.
improved, but
It's definitely.
is
I
it
mean, I think
improved
it's the same as-
50%?
I think it's the same as this proposal. It's all, until they get 5-10 years down the road.
So we don't know.
The same way with this proposal, we don't necessarily know. All logic tells us that both options are going to improve the situation. Just because we have a type of drain, it's kind of debatable what type of drain, and we have the granular backfill and those other things that are improving the drainage of the roads.
Yeah.
So it's sort of how we're doing it and to what extreme. I mean, with a house, we could double the depth of the foundation. You're not going to get necessarily the return on your investment for doubling the depth of foundation to improve the quality of the home. So that's kind of where we're at and what our stance is. We certainly want to pull some of the burden off the townships of the maintenance, repairs, and things like that, and that's why we're saying we agree with the revision of the
Right,
payment.
and again, I personally, I appreciate where you guys are coming from. Again, we've had a good working relationship with the development community for a very long time, and generally, you've been very reasonable. We like to think of ourselves as very reasonable. When we constructed a new sewer plant, when there was no more room at the end, we've worked well with the development community for a long period of time, and I think everybody's recognizing there is a problem, and let's try to address it. Then, much like Commissioner Jones, I've got 3 engineers in the room who have spent a lot of time on this. One of them has been the elected engineer of the people for over 20 years, telling us, not just anecdotally, but giving us actual facts and a lot of research saying, do this. I mean, my question to you, Kurt and Dave, would be what they're proposing. Again, I like to play an attorney with Bruce all the time because of my constitutional law classes. I didn't take any engineering classes. I have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to, does a drain that lays on top of a subbase work as effectively as 18-inch trenches on either side? Layman's terms, I think that one's better, but then again, as you said, is it materially better? Is the outcome better? Which is a legitimate question. And that's where I would say it's not anecdotal. We have real evidence of a major road being constructed in this county that wasn't a 15-year schedule when it was constructed under these circumstances, maybe a little bit higher standard even. It's been 25 years, and it's performed unbelievably well with super high traffic. So we know that. So the question would be, have you guys looked at what these gentlemen have talked about, and you're still, as the engineers that have the stamp that you can sign off on blueprints for, you're saying, no, we think what's best in the totality of the circumstances that sometimes are unique to Warren County, that, hey, maybe we get more. We have the greatest natural aquifer this side of the Mississippi, and we have a lot of rain. We have a lot of groundwater here. We have a lot of snow here compared to Kenton County, a lot more. So do those extraneous factors maybe factor into this decision that we think that this is more appropriate? So that's a question to the engineers.
Yeah, I mean, Kurt Weber, Engineer's Office, the traditional method that we're accustomed to and used to, we know it works. We don't know if the Kenton County under drain placement works. I mean, it's too early to tell. So we as engineers really don't want to, put our stamp or approval on that. We want to go with what's been tried and true, the traditional under drain, installation that we know works.
Is that method that you just are proposing now, it's being used in some other counties in Ohio?
Yes, correct, Dave.
And that's in Greene County, you said?
I think Dave said Green. Go ahead, Dave.
Delaware, I'm sure there's some others, And,
Okay, well, hold on just a second.
yeah.
You guys are representing a lot of different developers. I bet you they're building up in those counties too, aren't they?
Yeah, more so Fisher.
Yeah.
So what is your experience with that, using those kind of standards?
Back to the beginning, we absolutely agree that, there needs to be revisions to this. I think one of the biggest,
Sir, can you please walk to the microphone?
my biggest issue with this has been, from the beginning, there's been talks of increasing bonding periods, extending those timeframes. And if we are going to take on the burden on the front end of, basically giving you guys more confidence in your roadways, why should we also have to burden the cost of extending?
Reasonable point.
Yeah.
What's our rebuttal to that? That if we're, by all accounts, making the roads better from the get-go, we're actually thinking about extending bonding periods also?
Kurt, engineer's office. Historically, way back 20 or 30 years ago, we had basically 80% of the lots had to be built upon before the surface course went on, before the 2-year maintenance period started. Here recently, we've worked with the development community in an effort, and it was good for us too, to get that surface course on sooner. So we've been letting them, as soon as they're ready to put that surface course on, put it on. We have, and then that 2-year maintenance starts, as soon as that surface course is laid and placed. We have received, negative feedback from the townships on that. And they're saying, hey, we like it the way it was before, because we don't want that surface course on, because those streets continue to get pounded and get pounded and get pounded and get pounded. They wanted 80%. Dave, to his credit, and talking with Neil, we thought, well, maybe we can't get to 80 because we are increasing the standard. That's why we proposed the 2/3. Let's go to 2/3 of the lots built upon, and that's why. So that's why we're where we're at.
With the bond, how does this relate to the bond question?
So the bond question, I think we need to continue bonding improvements. Sounds like Kitten County may not bond, but because if there's any, we've been through that before when the bond's been expired, and then all of a sudden it's the county commissioner's responsibility, and we've had to, bid out the improvements. Trying to remember the name of that subdivision, but off of 22 and 3. But
Shepherd's Way.
Shepherd's Way, okay. So.
You can't retire.
Anyway, are you either? Or anyway, it's important, I think, to bond those, because if something does go wrong, it's on the public to take care of that.
Are we thinking about I want to understand, just, again, we're very much in the weeds, which is okay, but are we increasing a burden at the same time of increasing these development standards? Are we lengthening bond periods? Are we saying about the final coat stuff of 80% versus 2?
Yeah.
Are we making it, we're doing this and we're doing this, is almost
Yes,
what you're saying, correct?
That's right. And I would say the way we're doing things now, we're letting them resurface it almost immediately. So yeah, waiting till 2/3 of the homes, it's probably, and they probably could speak better to this than we could, but maybe it's as fast as the houses go up, it's probably close to that now. But yeah, so to answer your question, Dave, yeah, we would be saying, hey, you can't put it on immediately, or at least you could. Actually, you can put the surface course on immediately, but the 2-year maintenance wouldn't start until 2/3 of the homes are built upon. Just trying to prevent, okay, if it's not built out, if there's a lull in development, and then you've got more construction traffic coming in and pounding these roads, you know. then
What's our
it's
bonding period now?
2 years.
So
Or
explain.
two-year maintenance period. I mean, they build the streets and yeah, I mean, these guys, to their credit, they get in there and they do it quick. I mean, they could go 3 years, performance, meaning build the streets and then 2-year maintenance. But generally, you guys are in there in a year. And I know, I don't want to, I mean, Fisher and then, I mean, Dries and MI Homes does the same thing. And so.
So I
So
I
two
hate
to
that we're
2 to 3
talking
years.
about this now and over an hour, but I don't understand what the benefit is to the developer. There clearly is one, because you keep talking about it, but it is not clear to me what the benefit is to them that you believe there is in allowing them at 2/3 versus 80%. What is the benefit?
The benefit to us is
I don't care
Okay.
about the benefit to you.
Okay.
I want to understand, you are injecting this as
Yeah,
a
I'll
benefit
let
to
them-
them.
I'll let them, yeah.
Yeah, to try to help us get out of the weeds. It's not necessarily what the engineering office is proposing, but my point is, if we're going to increase these costs, then we would like a little bit of give on our end. You know, maybe reduce it to no bond or just a 1-year maintenance and then we're out, you know, and it's handed over. That's the only reason I really brought it up. I didn't really want to get everybody down the weeds with that. But it's because we've also, you know, we're proposing the video of the storm lines. So it's not just increasing the road specification cost, but these following bond, you know, video of the storm cost. It's
But what
everything that
happens
comes
if it's just like, you know, that there's some failure on it, right? You know, the bond is, you know, I think about it in the worst case scenario. It's not that someone acted poorly, although it could be that this road was just not constructed right. What is the protection to the county with no bond, or the township with no bond at all against those types of things?
Yes, there really is none, but we've all had a pretty good working relationship historically. We just discussed the Shaker One, you know, issue. And I think a lot of these, I would like to know a lot of the pictures and the things. I know there's been issues over the past couple of years. I would like to know how many of these discussions are being sparked because of issues of these communities that were put in that started in 2003, 2005. It was a very busy time of growth in the county. I mean, in my younger years, I watched pavement go down in December that I was just like, I can't believe that this is going down. But I was a young guy, couldn't say anything. And a lot of these communities are just now sparking up with issues that these guys are all discussing, the townships and the county engineer's office. And we all agree with the added weights of today's truck traffic. There needs to be an update to the specifications. But as developers, when it's like, we're also gonna increase bonds, you know, we're gonna shoot a couple inches over Kenton County specs, we're basically gonna build an Irwin Simpson road.
Only on above 50 lots that were below Kenton County, on up to 50.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you need to find a, you know, I would just make it across the board because as you brought up a cul-de-sac street, concrete trucks are still gonna go drive down it, they're gonna turn.
Which again, is so much into the weeds of, does it even matter from a production standpoint that now you've got people measuring something different on the cul-de-sac versus this is just what we're doing? Because I've also seen situations where a contractor had a bad load of blank and it just failed after time. And I've been here long enough to remember, like the Providence development, right, Bruce? That the developer, even though you guys are good, reputable companies, we had a good, reputable company in here that failed. And then all of a sudden, the county is just stuck. They're out of business. There is no one coming up to our meeting. They're gone. So that happens in a county our size. So I think we do have to be diligent relative to trying to protect all. Again, it's not just working with one good developer or a couple good developers. We have lots of people developing and building land in 400 square miles that we have. So,
And I guess it's sort of in that spirit, it's like, you know, I don't like seeing so much angst about it. Like, this is, like, my expectation would have been that parties would have had conversation and that there would be more unanimity, even if that were objecting to it. It feels like there's all these issues that I don't know if they weren't raised during the interested party meetings, or this is an attempt just to slow things down. I don't really understand this level of detailed meeting. And while I'm inclined personally, you know, I hear what the engineer's office is saying, and I am incredibly sympathetic to the needs of the taxpayers here. I'm just a little bothered that this isn't more tied up and we're now talking about details that
If I can make a suggestion, Madam President, that I think the parties are all hearing, at least the consensus of this board is my original premise. We're gonna do something. We're gonna change these standards. And it seems like, I tend to think, as you said, you guys are, I've seen wide rivers of differences of opinions on, this isn't even a problem, we don't need to do anything. No one's saying that. Everybody's agreeing that there is a problem, we need to change these things, and you're even agreeing to 80% of the way we get there. It's kind of in the weeds. What I would suggest is maybe instructing the parties to go back and have another meeting and saying, can you get to some of the points of the board of thinking through things like, okay, if we're requiring all this, is that 2-year period really necessary? Give some thought to that, discuss that. Get into the thoughts of, is it worthwhile to even say, here's a dead-end cul-de-sac street, does it have to be built to the same standard as every other? And again, I don't know what the answers to those questions are, but I agree with Commissioner Jones. I think you all should get into the weeds maybe one more time and see if you can work this out, and then have the development community, for the most part, and again, I'm sure there's gonna be some of your members who'll say, this is terrible, don't do this at all. But you guys are representing an entire association, you're one of the biggest in the region, that come back and say, no, this is reasonable. That's what I would suggest, is you guys go into those engineering rooms and I can't say it, I wanna say it so bad, don't kick each other's asphalt, just get in there and discuss it and hopefully work it out, and I think you guys are really close. And again, with the notion of this is going to change, it's just where do we land, and a little bit of give and take, again, protecting the taxpayers, but recognizing, yeah, your costs on these things are going up 38-40% on this thing, but it's going to be better over a long period of time, and hopefully that repayment schedule is not 15 years, maybe it's 20 to 25 years, which would be great. Jonathan, I respect your opinion so much. I mean, does this seem reasonable to you? I mean,
It seems
John Seamster, Oak Creek Township trustee. It seems reasonable to me, particularly if they're able to, I've appreciated the discussion today from both sides. I think both sides are being very transparent and honest with you. At the end of the day, we need to come up with good standards. Certainly, we still have our opinions on bonding and service codes on that as well, which we'll express to the engineer's office, but we will arm them with that information for the discussion, so that they can walk in and have a good discussion with.
Perhaps you can be invited
And
into the room.
I think the township should be at the table here. You're a party to it, and you represent the taxpayers who are footing the bill, and I think you should be a part of those conversations, because it just seems to me at the county's engineer's position is we want to go with that which we know is tried and true, and this is the cost associated with it. We're hearing from the developers that they're acknowledging and stipulating to the fact that there needs to be some change. They want us to try something else. And so we need to know what that something else is, and is it a proven to meet the needs, and I think the township has a lot at stake here, and so I think, and in fact, I find the townships to be incredibly compelling in this decision, because it's whether or not those who are using the roads should pay for the roads, or those who are taxpayers in the political subdivision should pay disproportionately for the roads. So, I think that's a reasonable decision. I guess or suggestion, my question would be to the county engineer's office, if we move this, add this issue to our October 3rd meeting, does rendering a decision then throw things off of your trajectory?
We're getting to the end of the construction season right now, so we've got a lot going on with with our other projects. We've got a lot of with our TID has got 63 ready to go, Fieldsboro Road ready to go. We've got a lot of big projects that we're working on, but I guess we could probably delay it till October 3rd for another meeting. It'd be tough to fit it in with all the things going on in September, but we'll work at it.
I mean, we can delay it later.
No,
If we're at the end of the season, does putting it off until November or December?
Well, we have developers that are getting plans ready for the, construction season next year, so in fairness to them, we probably need to.
Okay.
Well, are they in agreement with this idea of giving you more time to talk? Because one of the things, I see a new person coming up here, but one of the things that we were told at the get-go of this is that there was very little discussion until just really recently, or objection until really recently.
Yeah, correct, on that last
And
statement.
that's, I think that's something that is significant to us, is that it seemed like this was happening and you were sharing details with the development community, but you didn't get their objections until a few days ago.
Yeah, a week ago.
And it seems to me
yeah.
that having a discussion after you understand their objections and their alternative proposals is worthwhile to vet that, because obviously we would prefer to have consensus. And you all, development community, understand that the primary political subdivisions that we deal with roadways are townships. So it's really significant to us what our townships tell us. We rely on that. All of this engineering stuff is way over our pay grade. We don't really know what's appropriate. I've not seen data that can give me a good comparison of doing this. What's the cost benefit of that? I don't see that. So I understand, because we've been given some data on what our townships are spending. We're obviously very interested in what they have to say. And ultimately, somebody pays for this. And the developer you transfer all your costs onto the people who buy your homes, or you sell your lots to people who build homes. And they're gonna pay for whatever happens in that subdivision. But in the future maintenance cost, that's on the taxpayers in those in those townships. And I don't know what the cost benefit is, but we would obviously prefer to have you all present your positions and come to consensus, knowing that we are gonna do something. But I also thought it was really illuminating as to the comparison with other jurisdictions. There aren't a lot doing this, but there are some, and you're building in those areas, developers, and so I'd like to see if you can, since there's only got the objections recently, if you guys can get together and see if you can come to some consensus.
Sir, could you come to the mic and state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, John Cowan, Somerset Custom Homes. I'm the president of the Greater Cincinnati Home Builders Association. I'd like to add to your point, Mr. Grossman, about the lack of involvement, as it were. County officials or county employees have a large length of time in order to be able to do all of this research, get their engineering done, provide all of that. We who are volunteers, we serve on our boards or in our positions 1 year at a time, and we move on. We've gone through a lot of changes in our association over the last couple of years. Some of that information may not have gotten passed forward to the people that are going to be in charge the following year. So for that, we do apologize. I would like to ask for November 3rd, if that's your next following the October meeting timeframe, to allow us some time to get some of the information that you were asking for, specifically Mr. Young, to be able to back up the way these guys have with their presentation, to be able to give you our side of it.
You're asking past October 3rd, you're looking for a November date?
Yes, ma'am.
That's fine with me, if the engineer is okay with that.
November 7th.
The only problem is just now we're kicking the can and we're gonna put developers more in a problem
that's-
for the,
I mean, as
Next
long as they're
year's.
willing to take that
Yeah, but they're-
responsibility
but it's on them. It's on
Yeah.
their own members.
To be honest with you, I mean, the longer we push it, correct, Commissioner Young, I agree with that. One of the reasons, I mean, we've had a lot going on, to Neil's point, and we got here, over the last couple of years and months. Dave Mick's done an outstanding job putting a lot of work into this, as well as Neil. And, I think that's the thing, time's of the essence, just because we need to get it done.
So
you
if
know,
we
and-
split the difference and we look 2 weeks after October 3rd, that's turning us to October, 17th? What does that look like?
We have a very long work session with the Water and Sewer
Yes.
Department to discuss rates that day,
Okay.
starting at 9 a.m.
Okay.
11 or 10:30?
So
Yeah,
10, 10:30, 10.
10.
So if we split the difference then to the October the 17th at 10 a.m., okay. I mean, I hear what the engineer's office is saying, I hear what the builders are saying, we're taking everybody at their word that they're gonna talk in good faith, and at the end of the day, we'll make a decision on the 17th.
Correct. The only other thing, if I were in the developer's shoes, we've asked a lot of the engineers, specific technical questions. One thing because again, we're not opposed to innovative ways of doing things, that is there quantifiable data on these above, the drainage systems that are above the trenched? Again, common sense tells me that I would almost be okay with those in like cul-de-sac streets, because we know there's not gonna be as much traffic there, what have you, and do they work, and is that enough of a difference to say we're doing it 2 different ways within the same subdivision? I'm just saying, again, I don't know the answer to that, and I think that's something you guys should talk about, but that would, again, that's the only thing in the back of my mind of, well, I kinda get it if, there's only 10 houses on a particularly stub street, do they do that drain that's above, if they can produce data that maybe you guys haven't seen, or the manufacturer of that has spent years doing it in Europe or whatever it is, and they can provide that data, or does that data even exist? And if it doesn't, then we just maybe stick with the way you're suggesting it, because then it's uniform and it's throughout the entire subdivision. That's what I mean. I don't even know if it's worth their while to have 2 different standards within the same subdivision for collector roads versus a sub-street. But that's the stuff you guys should really honestly talk about. That's just the only thing that keeps going through my mind, honestly.
Yeah,
So
I guess the drainage, I would say, is probably the same no matter where you're at, whether it's a cul-de-sac street or a busy street. It's
But the
drainage.
problem is aggravated by the amount of traffic and the weight of the traffic and things like that, and the main road coming in and out of
As
Shaker.
far as damage, right?
Yeah, that's what I
Or
was talking
impact,
about.
yeah.
So again, you guys can talk, that's just in the back of my mind.
So
Yeah, I
is
mean,
there
I
a
guess
motion to continue the hearing until Tuesday, October the 17th at 10 a.m.?
And yes.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Great,
Appreciate it
thank
very
you
much.
all very
Thank you.
much for being here, appreciate it. Okay, Neil, don't go far, because you're next on the agenda for, a work session to discuss the stormwater management fee. Oh, okay. Says Neil Tunison on my paper. Okay, great, thank you, Neil.
All right, I think we can make this quick. So property owners in 5 of our 11 townships pay into a stormwater fee of $12 a year. Our request is to increase the fee to $15 a year. Notably, when this fee was first implemented in 2008, the fee was set at $12.50 a year, which has a current value of $18.10. So, you know, at the end, it's basically just keeping up with inflation. And we are still below, you know, the value, the 2008 value that was set then. So just quickly, your board holds a permit through the Ohio EPA that allows discharge of stormwater into streams, lakes, rivers. That's known as an MS4 permit, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System permit. County Engineer's Office and Soil and Water Department, that our staffs fulfill those obligations for you. The stormwater fee is one funding source to pay for the staff time and resources. These are the requirements, your requirements to fulfill the permit, laid out, public education, inspection of outfalls. At any time, the Soil and Water Group is looking at about 150, 160 active construction sites and so forth, 4,000 discharge points. All that takes time and resources. Not everyone is included in this Warren County permit. The east counties do not have the population sufficient enough. They are not required to join in the MS4 permit. I'm sorry, the east townships. And the cities and Deerfield Township each have their own permit. So they have their own stormwater fee. You'll notice I have in parentheses there the fees, the annual fees of some of those agencies. City of Franklin, $66 a year. City of Mason, $56.40. Deerfield's at $23. City of Lebanon, $47.40. Now, that's not apples to apples because some of those agencies do some maintenance with that, and everybody has a little bit different program. We have a conservative approach. We strictly fulfill the MS4 permit requirements and nothing else. So we are at $12, and again, our request is $15.
Who pays the fee?
Property owners who have more than $10,000 worth of improvements.
So you pay this fee if you have more than $10,000 of improvements in a given year?
It's the
No,
permit
yeah,
for it.
Yeah, if you have a residence on a property.
So you're getting a permit to make an improvement. And so when you go out to make your improvement that's gonna cost more than the amount you said, you then pay the fee as part of getting the permit, correct?
All residents within the townships that are included in our MS4 permit pays the fee.
Yeah, everybody, it's not just somebody.
Okay, so it's not just some people getting a permit for doing a building project, it's everybody pays, so that was my question.
Yeah,
Who
board
pays
has
the
the
fee?
permit.
Everybody, is it charged in the real estate tax?
Yes.
In 5 townships.
Yes,
I
in
get it.
5
I just wanted to understand who pays it and, all right.
Unless it's a vacant lot.
Correct.
I live in Lebanon, and it's on my utility bill every month. They break it down.
All right, but yeah, and they're charging a lot more. This is an annual $15 fee on the real estate taxes in those townships.
In these townships, correct. Clear
That's
Creek.
paid semi-annually, so it's broken out.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just like
So
the
it's
taxes.
semi-annual, it's be $7.50?
Yes, if you approve the increase to 15,
So what is the current amount?
12.
12. So we're going up $3.
Yes, sir.
So we're going up $1.50 every 6 months.
Yes, sir.
I'm okay with that.
So is there action you need us to take today? Because this is listed as a work session.
Yes, if the board is in agreement to approve it, we would
Is
need to
there a
have
resolution?
I do not have one yet,
Issue when
but we can get, I
We
mean,
don't
I
have
can
to
do
have
it
the
after the
resolution
fact.
done today. We have to have it done by the, we have to certify to the county auditor by the second Monday of September. So we're just trying to.
So,
bring this
so
up to you.
we could take a vote and put it on the consent agenda for formal approval, Bruce, at the next.
Well, we can just give direction. We don't really take a vote today if we're going to put it.
Yeah,
on
we can have the resolution prepared if you're prepared to offer a motion
Yeah,
today.
I can
Make
take
a
care of
motion,
that.
I make a motion that we approve the increase from $12 to $15 of this permit fee.
Second?
Oh, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Tiff, is there anything else before I take a motion to go into executive session for now 3 sections? Add that one to there. Anything you need?
Oh,
to
no,
add?
I do not have anything.
You're adding a third.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for union negotiations pursuant to ORC, section 121.22G4, followed by an executive session on matters required to be kept confidential per federal, state law pursuant to ORC 121.22G5, and then thirdly, adding a executive session to discuss pending litigation with legal counsel presence pursuant to ORC 121.22G3 is my motion.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.